Amara stood at the edge of her coffee farm, her hands calloused from years of planting, harvesting, and dreaming. The soil beneath her feet was rich, the air fragrant with the aroma of ripening beans, yet her heart was heavy. Her farm, nestled in a small village in the global south, produced some of the finest coffee in the world, but she could barely make a living. Across the oceans, wealthier farmers exported their products at impossibly low prices, aided by government subsidies. Markets that once welcomed Amara's coffee were now closed to her. Trade restrictions left her struggling to provide for her family. "How can I compete in a world that feels rigged against me?" she wondered. But Amara was not one to give up. She believed in fairness, unity, and her ability to make a difference. "If the world won't change for me, I'll change the world," she said one evening as she looked out at her farm bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun. Her journey began with sharing her story. She wrote letters, spoke at meetings, and posted videos online telling the world about her struggles and dreams. "Trade is not just about numbers," she said in one video. "It's about people, it's about dignity." Her words struck a chord. Farmers from other nations facing similar challenges reached out to her. Together they formed a coalition called Fair Harvest, demanding the elimination of trade distortions and subsidies. Amara traveled to conferences and summits, her voice growing louder with every stage she stood on. "When you help a farmer like me," she would say, "you're lifting an entire community. You're investing in sustainability and hope." As the movement grew, world leaders began to take notice, but not everyone was convinced. Some argued that subsidies were necessary, while others dismissed the coalition's efforts as naive. Amara faced these challenges with unshakable determination. "If we believe the world can be fairer, then it can be," she told her fellow farmers. "Every great change starts with belief. If we don't believe in fairness, who will? If we don't fight for it, who will?" Her words inspired thousands, turning skepticism into solidarity. Farmers, consumers, and even policymakers began to believe in the possibility of a world where trade lifted everyone equally. Years of advocacy, perseverance, and collaboration finally bore fruit. Governments committed to eliminating agricultural export subsidies and equivalent trade barriers. The playing field leveled and markets opened up for farmers like Amara. When Amara returned to her village, the changes were already visible. Her coffee, now fairly traded, was being exported to markets around the world. She hired workers from her community, reinvesting her success into the people who had supported her through the hardest times. But Amara's greatest triumph wasn't just the success of her farm, it was the ripple effect of her efforts. Farmers everywhere began to thrive. Fair Harvest became a global symbol of what could be achieved when belief, values, and action aligned. Standing once again at the edge of her farm, Amara smiled as she watched her workers load bags of coffee for export. A sign by the roadside read, "Proudly grown, fairly traded." She knew the fight wasn't over. There were still challenges to overcome, but she also knew the power of belief. "When the world tries to tell you that change is impossible, prove it wrong," she said to a group of young farmers visiting her farm. "Every seed you plant on your farm or in the hearts of others can grow into something extraordinary. Never stop sowing hope." Amara's story became a beacon of motivation for people everywhere. It reminded them that no barrier is too big to break, no system too rigid to change, and no dream too small to matter. And so her legacy lived on, a testament to the power of courage, belief, and the unyielding pursuit of fairness.